Welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King. It is almost game day, about a day away. If you're listening to this, you might be listening to it on Saturday morning. Probably not if it's considering it's 11 a.m. kick. Of course, 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. Auburn faces Ole Miss in Oxford. It's only the second time that Auburn has played a top 10 Ole Miss team in their history. And the Rebels are looking like about right now they're going to close at around a 2-touchdown favorite. So trying to snap a losing streak there. Ole Miss is. They've lost 6 straight in this series. Of course, that means Auburn has won 6 straight going back to 2016, but it seems like a bit of a stretch this year. But you never know. We're going to get a little bit more insight though on what Ole Miss has done so far this season and what to expect from Saturday's game from Mr. Tyler Komis from Rebels 24/7 inside the Rebels. Tyler, we caught up with you over the summer to preview this team and preview this game. And I remember you talking about, the potential for this to be a good rushing attack, that trio of running backs they had, and also the potential for this to be an improved defense. Seems like both of those have come true, and now we're looking at an undefeated Ole Miss team midway through the season.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me on again, Nathan. It's a pleasure to always be and doing these with you. And last time we did chat, it was July, and I said that I expect the Rebels to be 6-0 going into this game, and that rush attack again at the top of the SEC. I think it's just behind Alabama after 6 games. But I'm not going to lie, the defense has exceeded a lot of my expectations from July. They're only allowing 14 and a half points through 6 games. So I'm impressed.
Yeah, I want to start there on that side of the ball just because, it's funny to listen to Lane Kiffin too because he always kind of has this frustration when people are talking about how strong the rushing attack is, and he's like, "Well, y'all haven't been paying attention because this has been Ole Miss's identity. It's just they happen to have an NFL quarterback for the past couple seasons." But I thought it was interesting earlier this week. Brian Harsin said he actually thought Ole Miss had an underrated defense last year. He said they were better than they were given credit for, but at the end of the day, he said he does see a lot of improvement from that unit this season. Of course, they were the reason Ole Miss came out of that Kentucky game with a win. They were the reason Ole Miss beat a top 10 Kentucky team. They made defensive play after defensive play in that fourth quarter. I remember over the summer we talked about the loss of DJ Durkin, and you expressed a lot of confidence from your end in a guy like Partridge to be able to fill in there and keep this defense going at a high level. And so I guess what have been the biggest improvements on all three levels of this defense? What have been the reasons that they are now, I mean, they're a top 30, 35 unit in most efficiency metrics. And like you said, they've done a good job holding teams down in terms of a scoring perspective.
I think a big challenge that Partridge overcame was getting all these new players to mesh. Because I mean, there aren't too many returning guys from last year's starting D aside Finley, um, and a few guys on that D line. But guys like Pegues has been stepping up. Kari Coleman has been a huge addition. Troy Brown has honestly been the defensive MVP for Ole Miss right now up to this point. And there were a lot of question marks surrounding, how this defense is gonna how it's gonna improve or even, keep up with it last year because they lost two huge pieces in Chance Campbell and Sam Williams to the NFL draft. And they also have this true freshman, Davison Igbinosun, who's been starting since week one, who's really been he looks like he'll have a promising future as a lockdown corner at Ole Miss. So I look at those as to big reasons why this defense has been so good is just the way they've responded to each other on and off the field. More importantly, on.
Yeah, speaking of true freshmen, a guy that a lot of people in this state know just from right down the road at Pike Road, Montgomery. Quinshawn Judkins is a guy that it's kind of understood that Auburn, I don't know if drop the ball is the right word in terms of his recruitment. They had him sort of reeled in and on a string, but they didn't pursue him heavily. Now he goes to Ole Miss and looks like one of the best true freshman running backs we've seen in this conference in quite some time. I know Zach Evans is dealing with a minor, correct me if I'm wrong, a minor injury at the moment, but yeah, even
Yeah,
even when he's been healthy, Judkins has been at least looking like to me the more explosive option. Just kind of walk me through what has been. Oh, we lost Tyler. There he goes. He's gone. We'll bounce out of here for a second. Try to get him back in. He's back.
Sorry about that technical difficulty.
You're good. You're good. We'll cut through there. It's no big deal. But I guess just we were talking about the two running backs with and really three.
Right.
Ulysses Bentley is a pretty good third option for them. What's been the biggest key to not only this being yet again a top 5 rushing attack in the country, but for a guy like Judkins to step on campus and immediately be one of the best runners in the country?
He's just a physical runner. He's the workhorse of this team so far, and honestly, he's Evans was a lot more hyped up, and Ulysses Bentley as well, but he's been dealing with a wrist injury. He hasn't played. He hasn't dressed in a few games, rather. And this offensive line too. I mean, you have a redshirt freshman and Micah Pettis winning SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week in his first start 2 weeks ago against Kentucky. He's been impressive. And redshirt freshman Jaden Williams at left tackle has had to step in at this point of the season. They've really, I don't know if they've gotten enough credit for paving the way for guys like Judkins and Evans, but another part of that is Judkins' run style. He just seems to be regularly throwing guys off of him and seems to just gain traction as players just come right on him and bounce right off.
Yeah, it's kind of the NFL type. I mean, again, he's only a true freshman, but 6 games
Very
in,
young kid.
he's looked all the part, and that's kind of that NFL running back quality you look for is stronger as the game goes on, invites contact, is able to work his way through there. Matt Corral was such a big loss, of course, when you have a guy who is a bona fide NFL quarterback who is a multi-year starter for your program. And when we caught up over the summer, weren't sure who it was going to be between Jackson Dart and Luke Altmaier. Of course, both very talented guys. It has been Jackson Dart this season. I know that things haven't necessarily been as explosive or prolific as the heights under Matt Corral, but it's still been a really good passing offense. What does Dart do well so far in this offense this season? And what kind of weapons does he have at receiver? I know Mingo broke a receiving record for them against Vanderbilt, and there are question marks against Michael Trigg. Just tell me a little bit about this passing game that complements that rushing attack.
You're right. Compliments is the right word because this team is really a run first offense, and it's done well for them. Jackson's the best part of his game is definitely the deep ball and the explosive plays, and honestly, his running game is reminiscent of the one Matt Corral had. He Ole Miss fans want him to slide a lot more than he does. He takes a lot of contact himself, but he still has some things he needs to clean up in his game. I mean, he's only a 19-year-old sophomore, so and he's got a lot. I mean, just like the offense brought in a lot of new pieces too. So they didn't have the most time to click. It takes a few games to build that on-field chemistry. But Heath, and Mingo really seem to have some kind of chemistry going. And Jordan Watkins, a transfer from Louisville. He's starting to find a role in the offense. He's coming off a 100-yard game with including a 61-yard touchdown, and he says he feels a lot more confident, and he's kind of been waiting for that kind of game. And obviously, like you said, Mingo, 247 receiving yards against in Vanderbilt, and Jackson Dart just seems to be building upon each game. But at the same time, there's always in every game this season, there's been at least one, terrible decision, to put it frank, and one deep ball that's just barely overthrown, at least one per game. So he's still got things to sharpen up.
Yeah, just so Auburn fans can catch up on a couple of their former top end recruits, JJ Pegues and Ladarius Tennyson have both. You mentioned Pegues earlier on. It seems like in terms of creating high level SEC depth, which of course is what everybody in the conference wants. They've been big additions, if not just from that standpoint. I look at a guy, at least on the stat sheet, and obviously you can tell us more from watching the team every weekend, but Tennyson has really flashed in that regard. He's second on the team in tackles for loss at what's a pretty deep position group. If anytime you're going to be playing rock, paper, scissors to decide who's going to be the starter there, it seems like you're in pretty good shape. Just tell me a little bit about what both of those guys have brought on the defensive side this season, and then for Pegues, what he's brought on the offensive side too. Oh, we lost him again. That's all right. He'll be back. They always come back.
Man,
There we are.
I really hate to waste your time like this.
No, dude, it's totally fine. We will cut through it no problem on the
Talking
pod.
about Tennyson and Pegues, right?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, you're all good, man. No problem.
Perfect. So yeah, as you mentioned before, technical difficulties, Tennyson and Pegues have been really big additions for Ole Miss, especially especially Pegues in the run game, but both of them have really been great tacklers for Ole Miss, an area that head coach Lane Kiffin has called out a few times, and particularly against Tulsa, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. There's been a little bit of an issue there, but I saw that Tennyson already. I'm sure his playing time has been a lot different with Ole Miss than it was in years past with Auburn, but he already has a career high in tackles this season through 6 games. I think 23. I want to say.
Yeah, I believe so. And Pegues is on pace to, tackles for a guy at his position is not the most important statistic, but he's on. Yeah,
Absolutely.
he's on pace to surpass that, and they're using him on offense too, in kind of that up back role that you saw him at Auburn a little bit.
Yeah, they had him and another D lineman in at fullback the other week against Vanderbilt. But honestly, I thought he'd be playing a lot more offense after the spring game than what he has. But maybe, knowing Lane Kiffin, maybe he has something up his sleeve to get the former Tiger some kind of point.
Yeah, we've been talking about that a good bit this week. Like you said, knowing Kiffin and Pegues, of course, yeah, he's an Oxford guy. It's and he talking with him and Tennyson this week, watching their interviews, it seems like both of them are kind of keeping a level head going against their former teammates. But at the end of the day, like you said, it would not be surprising for him to give, for Kiffin to give him an opportunity to score in this game. Speaking of Kiffin, like we mentioned at the open, this is just a monkey that Ole Miss has been needing to get off their back for a little bit. You go back to last year, and the only other regular season loss for Ole Miss was at Alabama. I mean, if they had handled business at Auburn, when at the end of the year, of course, they look like they're a better team on the season than Auburn. I just don't think they played very well offensively in that game. You're talking about an 11-1 Ole Miss team that would have a shot, an outside shot, to be that 4 seed in the playoff. And then you go back to 2020, the possibly botched call on the kickoff. This has been a frustrating series for Ole Miss in recent history. And then for Lane Kiffin, since he took over, this has been one, and he talked about it this week. He says, we haven't played very well against Auburn, just from not only Lane Kiffin's perspective, because he's only been here a few years, but
I don't know if you just went out there, but if you're still there, this is a huge game for Lane Kiffin and crew and everyone in Oxford. There we go.
this has been an unreal this has been an unreal streaming experience. Yeah, I kind of came back in and realized you were pulling the weight for me. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, you're good, man. Just on what this game means to Lane Kiffin and everyone else in Oxford. I mean, like you kind of said, last year the only 2 losses for this team that made it to the Sugar Bowl last year were Alabama and Auburn, and the only 2 SEC or only teams for that matter that are 2-0 against Ole Miss is Auburn and Alabama in the Lane Kiffin era.
Wow.
So and you mentioned it, like 2 really close games the past 2 years. One, you oh man, back. Should I start over on that part?
No, you sure, why not? That's fine.
Okay.
Go for it.
As far as for Lane Kiffin, what this game means for Lane Kiffin and the whole Oxford community, you said it last season. Ole Miss's only 2 losses were Auburn and Alabama, and throughout the whole Lane Kiffin era, which started in 2020, the only 2 teams to go 2-0 against the Rebels has been Auburn and Alabama,
Wow.
and last 2 have been real gut wrenching losses for Ole Miss fans, especially. And losing the past 6 too. That doesn't help even before the Lane Kiffin era. So it's an 11 a.m. game. The crowd for Kentucky was unbelievable, and the game sold out again for this Saturday. So I expect an environment just like that Kentucky game, and we'll see if it actually gives Ole Miss a home field advantage, because Lane Kiffin's been trying to sell that the whole season and said that they only pulled that Kentucky game out at the end because of the crowd and energy. So they're looking for that same environment again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's kind of keeping up with it loosely in the beginning stages of the season. Kiffin doesn't mince words, especially when it comes to
No.
that angle of frustration. Saying, remember him after the first couple weeks of the year saying, you look around the country and you see the differences. You see differences being made in games by crowds, and then, like you mentioned, they had it go out there and make a difference against Kentucky. This is still, despite Auburn is. I don't know if they're as big a program as like an LSU, but really just, even those kinds of teams, even in down years, when you play a team like Ole Miss, they're still going to get up for that game. It's still going to be a big home game for them. Tyler, I guess just, a score prediction if you would like to, if you're at that point in the week
Yes.
where you're going to give one. But just overall, the way you see this game playing out, and kind of what some factors are for both these teams on Saturday.
Yeah, I actually just got done writing my fearless forecast, this little, prediction series our site does. And I had a final score of 38-17. Um, I mean, from following Auburn loosely a little bit, from what I understand, they're likely rolling with their freshman QB, Robbie Ashford, correct?
Yeah, yeah, first year guy from Oregon. Yeah, it's it's unlikely Finley is going to come back. He may travel, but I'd be shocked if he played in this game.
Yeah, and so I just at the end of the day, I like Ole Miss's quarterback more right now. And I just don't know if Auburn has the firepower on offense to keep up with Ole Miss scoring wise. But a few bad decisions by Jackson Dart could completely negate what I just said. And from what I've seen, I think Bigsby has had a little bit of a down year by his standards. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I like Ole Miss's defense to contain bottle all that up, and probably make them a one-dimensional offense come fourth quarter, and make Ashford throw the ball a lot.
Yeah, and that's not been a recipe for success for them. He's attempted 38 passes in each of their last 2 games. Against LSU, there were a couple coverage busts, so he was able to rack up the yardage, but he only completed 50% of his passes there. Look at Georgia; he had the worst completion percentage for an Auburn quarterback in a decade in that game. And you mentioned Bigsby's struggles. Yeah, a big factor for me, something I think that isn't talked about enough when it's looking at this matchup, and you referenced it when talking about Pegues and what he adds in that element. Ole Miss's run defense has been a lot better than it has been in seasons past, and that just doesn't bode well for what Auburn's got going on right now, because Bigsby is one thing, but the run blocking has just been atrocious. Really just not been able to get much of a head of steam. So I like that score prediction for you, because it is the exact same score prediction I've got. So it gets the stamp of approval. There you go. Gets the stamp of approval over here. Well, thank you so much, Tyler, for hopping on today. I know all of our listeners appreciated it. If you are listening to this in podcast form, then good on you, and you have no idea the kind of technical difficulty streaming experience we had today, because it was pretty unreal. It's Halloween. It's October. It's Halloween. We're just getting like pranked by some
exactly. It has to be a prank.
spirits, all that kind of stuff. I don't know, whatever, man. We'll get out of here before we get hit with another one. So thanks so much to Tyler for hopping on today. You guys can follow him on Twitter at Tyler Komis, Komis. Of course, Inside the Rebels is our 24/7 affiliate sister site over there, covering the Ole Miss Rebels. They've done a bunch of great preview stuff this week. So until the next episode, which will be me and Jason reacting on our way back from Oxford on Saturday evening, we will catch you guys later. Everybody enjoy the game, and we will talk to y'all soon.